Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our C# programming tutorial series, and in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at some of the built-in interfaces in .NET. Now, there are a few of them that we're going to take a look at, but what you must understand is that there are many more than just these. These are some of the more common ones that you'll find, whether it be directly or indirectly. So let's get started. The first one being iComparable. Now, what does iComparable do? Well, iComparable has one method that you must implement when you implement this interface, and that is compare to. That method is used to compare two instances of an object, and you can choose to compare them by a property, by all of its properties, by some return of a method, or something like that. Right? That method returns an int determining the results of the comparison. And so iComparable is often used, in fact, most often used, in objects that can be stored in lists. So when you call the sort method on a list, that is how it goes and compares the objects inside the list for sorting. Each object, most of the time anyway, has a compare to method, because they implement iComparable, like ints, doubles, decimals, those kinds of things. They implement iComparable, and then they have their own compare to. And so with that, you can you can compare your two objects and sort them if you would like. Okay. Now the next one is iDisposable. What does this method do, or rather, what does this interface do? Well, iDisposable is meant to help you dispose of unmanaged resources when you're done with them. A prime example would be when you're working with files. Oftentimes when you're reading and writing from files, you're going to forget, right? You're going to forget to close what are called readers and writers, which you need to close lest you cause a memory leak and other problems are down the road. So the iDisposable method, or iDisposable interface, the iDisposable interface is meant to help with that. So when you implement iDisposable, you need to provide an implementation for one method, and that is dispose. Inside of this dispose method, you would close and handle the closing of all of the unmanaged resources that you're using in the class that implements it. Okay? So let's say you're writing to a file and you're using a file stream, or a stream writer, or stream reader rather. In that dispose method, you close those. In dispose, you would close those, and it will close those when the object is discarded in memory. Okay, so when the object goes away in memory, dispose gets called, and everything closes, and you'll be hunky-dory. Now, the other thing about iDisposable is that when you are using what's called a using statement, we'll take a look at those when we cover reading and writing to files. a using statement will call any kind of like any dispose method of an object as long as it implements iDisposable on its own. So at the end of a using statement, it calls dispose and boom, everything's closed for you. So you don't have to explicitly close it yourself, which is nice. Okay, so that is iDisposable. The next one is IEnumerable. Now, what is IEnumerable? Well, IEnumerable allows you to make your custom collections iterable with a for each. This has a generic and non-generic variant. We'll talk about generics later, but just know that it does have those two variants, just like iComparable. iComparable also has generic and non-generic variants. But that's really all IEnumerable does. Really, it makes your collection iterable with for each. Now, iCollection. The iCollection interface, much like IEnumerable and iComparable, has a generic and non-generic counterpart. This interface is meant to allow you to you implement this interface, and it gives you all kinds of properties and methods you might want in a custom collection. Now, of course, you're not going to want all of them in many circumstances, and that's why taking a look at some of the built-in collections interfaces in the system.collection or system.collections.generic interface would be a good place to start. So you can kind of understand which interface you might want to implement for your specific collection. But there are a lot of good stuff in this interface that I urge you to take a look at. Okay. The next one is iClonable. Now, put simply, this interface has one method that you provide an implementation for, and that is clone. This method is meant to allow you inside of its body and everything to make a clone of the current object. Right, so that's pretty much what it does. That's pretty much what it's for. It's pretty simple, actually. Now, the last one we're going to take a look at is iList. Now, this interface is among the interfaces for collections. This collection is mainly for creating your own custom lists. So if you want to create your own custom list, with iList. Now, the big thing you need to remember about about a lot of these collection-based interfaces like iList or iDictionary, which we'll take a look at in when we look at generic interfaces, and iCollection, is that they all also include an implementation for IEnumerable. So you already implement IEnumerable with those interfaces. Okay, so that is some of the built-in interfaces into .NET. I urge you to check out the C# documentation for some more of these interfaces to learn a little bit more about how these ones work and all that kind of stuff. But that pretty much does it for this video, guys. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.